I am 89 years old, and there is one name I still say quietly when the house is empty. I have buried parents, watched my wife fade, and outlived most of the people who once knew me well. But the loss that stays closest is the friend I walked away from after one argument and never found the courage to return to. I am not telling this because I expect forgiveness or comfort. I am telling it because time has narrowed and some truths only come out when there is very little left to lose. At this age, days move slowly and years move fast. Mornings arrive whether I am ready or not, and nights stretch longer than they used to. I spend a lot of time sitting, not because I am tired, but because memories come without warning and ask me to stay with them. Some are kind, some are sharp. The sharpest one always leads back to him. His name was Samuel, though almost no one called him that. To me he was Sam, from the time we were boys, with dirt on our knees and plans that made no sense. We met before we were 10, on a street where everyone knew everyone, and friendships were formed by proximity more than intention. He lived 3 houses down, and one afternoon we ended up throwing a ball against the same brick wall. By evening, we were inseparable. We grew up together in ordinary ways. School, summer jobs, borrowed bicycles, cheap coffee, and long conversations about nothing that felt like everything. There was nothing remarkable about us as individuals. Together, we felt steady. When my father died suddenly, Sam was the one who showed up without asking, sat with me, and said very little. When his mother fell ill, I drove him to the hospital more times than I can count. We never talked about loyalty. We lived it without naming it. In our 20s, life began to pull in different directions, but never far enough to break the line between us. I married first. He followed a few years later. We took jobs we did not love, but felt responsible to keep. We complained about work, about money, about the small disappointments that pile up when you are building a life without instructions. Through all of it, we kept showing up for each other. Birthdays, late-night phone calls, favors asked and returned. It felt permanent. That feeling of permanence is something I did not question back then. I assumed that people who mattered would always be there, waiting, understanding. I assumed silence could be repaired later. I assumed time was generous. Those assumptions did not feel reckless. They felt reasonable. Everyone around us was busy surviving their own lives, and postponing emotional repair seemed normal. The argument did not arrive like a storm. It crept in the way many things do, disguised as a small disagreement. It was about money, though not because either of us was greedy. We had gone into a modest business idea together, something safe, something meant to supplement what we already earned. At first, it worked well enough. Then a few decisions were made without full agreement. Nothing dishonest, but enough to leave me feeling dismissed. I remember the day clearly. We were standing in his garage, the smell of oil and old wood in the air. He spoke quickly, certain he was right. I felt talked over, made small. Instead of saying that plainly, I said something sharp, something meant to wound, just a little, so he would feel what I was feeling. His face changed in a way I had never seen before. Not anger exactly, more like distance arriving all at once. He said a few words I still hear sometimes when I wake up too early. He said he thought I knew him better than that. I replied that maybe I thought I did, but maybe I didn't. That sentence did more damage than I understood. We stood there for a moment longer, neither of us backing down, both of us tired and proud. Then I left. I told myself I would call him when I cooled off. Days passed, then weeks. Each day it felt a little harder to pick up the phone. I replayed the argument in my head, correcting my tone, rewriting my lines. I also rehearsed what I would say if he apologized first. I told myself space was healthy. I told myself he needed time to reflect. What I was really doing was protecting my pride. Life did not pause to give us a chance to fix it. Work continued. Bills arrived. Children needed attention. There were moments when I almost dialed his number, then stopped because it felt awkward, or because I was tired, or because I convinced myself it could wait. The waiting became a habit. Months turned into years without any dramatic marker, no announcement, no final conversation, just absence, slowly becoming normal. I heard about him through others. He was fine. He was busy. He asked about me once, someone said. I pretended not to care and felt hollow immediately after. There were events I did not attend because he would be there. There were events he skipped because I would be. We both learned how to live around the shape of each other's absence. That adaptation is quiet and efficient. It does not announce itself as loss. It just settles in. The cost of that decision did not arrive all at once. It arrived in small ways. When something good happened, I had one less person to tell. when something hard happened, I noticed the silence where his voice would have been. I filled that space with busyness. I worked longer hours. I focused on being useful. I told myself I was doing what needed to be done. Years later, when my marriage began to strain under the weight of time and unspoken resentments, I thought of him often. He had known me before I learned how to hide parts of myself. He would have understood things I could not explain to anyone else. Instead, I kept those thoughts to myself and let them turn inward. The turning point came without ceremony. I received a call from someone I barely knew anymore, telling me Sam was sick, not a passing illness, something serious. I sat with the phone in my hand long after the call ended. I thought about visiting. I thought about what I would say. I thought about whether I was welcome. I delayed again. I told myself he was surrounded by family. I told myself my presence might complicate things. These were excuses that sounded considerate, but were rooted in fear of rejection, fear of being reminded of how long it had been. By the time I decided to go, it was too late. He died on a quiet morning, according to the notice I read in the paper. I stared at his name, printed in ink, reduced to dates and a short paragraph. I felt something inside me go still, not dramatic grief, something heavier, something final. I did not attend the funeral. That is one of the truths I carry with the most difficulty. I told myself I would be an intrusion. I told myself it was not my place anymore. What I was really doing was avoiding the mirror that day would have held up to me. There are losses you mourn publicly, and losses you mourn alone. This one has been with me in every quiet room since. At 89, I understand now that what we left unfinished does not fade. It waits. It waits patiently until there is nothing else loud enough to distract you. What cannot be fixed is simple and brutal. I cannot hear his voice again. I cannot correct the tone of that sentence in the garage. I cannot show up late and laugh it off. Time does not negotiate, it only collects. I sometimes imagine what would have happened if I had called him a week after the argument, or a month, or even a year. I imagine awkward words, long pauses, maybe some defensiveness. I imagine relief arriving quietly after. None of those imagined discomforts compare to the permanence I live with now. If you are listening to this, and there is someone you have not spoken to because it feels complicated or because too much time has passed, I understand that feeling well. I lived inside it for decades. I cannot tell you what to do. I can only tell you what it cost me. I thought I was protecting myself. I thought I was standing my ground. What I was really doing was choosing temporary comfort over lasting connection. I did not know that was the choice I was making at the time. Most regrets are built that way. I do not expect this story to change anything. I only hope it lands gently where it needs to. My time is mostly behind me now. I live quietly. I remember often. And some nights, when everything else has settled, I still talk to him in my head, knowing he cannot answer, and wishing I had been brave enough when it mattered.